suitcase looked pitiful against the backdrop of towering crystal vases and imported art. The Millers had been rich for generations, old money made even richer through the family's investment banking empire. In our world, every son was expected to join the firm, wear the tailored suits, and carry on the legacy, but I had chosen a different path. Engineers are just glorified mechanics. My father had told me more than once, no son of mine will waste his life fixing machines. I saw the world differently. While my family made fortunes in boardrooms, I believed the next great empires would be built in labs, fueled by technology and innovation. To him, my ideas were naive. To me, his world was a gilded cage. My mother, perched elegantly on the staircase with a martini in hand, offered her version of comfort. Come back to the firm, Charles. Your father can fix this little rebellion. You don't have to throw everything away. I shook my head slowly. No, mother, I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not. My father's face flushed crimson. Then get out. You're no longer a Miller. Forget your trust fund. Forget your connections. Forget everything we've given you, for some silly dream that will get you nowhere. I bent down, picked up the $99 bill, and slid it into my wallet. Keep your trust fund, I said quietly. I'll build something of my own. He laughed, the kind of cold, humorless laugh meant to wound. Without the Miller name, you're nothing. I left that mansion with $99 in my pocket, a suitcase in my hand, and my worthless degree. No car, no apartment, no safety net, just a vision and a stubborn determination my father never understood. The next morning, I bought a $65 bus ticket to Austin, Texas. I spent $5 on a burger and fries in a small diner and stared at the last $29 in my wallet. Pulling out a napkin, I wrote down 3 promises to myself. I will never rely on the Miller name. I will build something that matters. I will change the world. I got my first job washing dishes at a tiny cafe in exchange for meals and a corner to sleep in, wedged between burlap sacks of coffee beans. The air smelled like roasted espresso, and the nights were filled with the quiet hum of refrigerators. When I wasn't working, I sketched designs for a new kind of energy storage system, something that could store power at near-perfect efficiency. My coworker, Olivia, often lingered after closing, bringing me leftover pastries and peering at my drawings. So you're making a better battery? She asked one night. Not exactly, I said. I'm building something that stores energy with almost zero loss, 99% efficiency. Why isn't anyone else doing this? She asked. Because everyone thinks it's impossible, I replied, smiling faintly. After 5 months, I'd saved enough to rent a cramped room with 3 other tech enthusiasts. I began freelancing for local startups, which is how I met Edward Evans, a venture scout with a sharp eye for talent. He introduced me to Dr. Andrea Bell, a molecular engineer at Oxford with a reputation for chasing impossible projects. She studied my designs for days, running simulations and calculations. Finally, she looked up at me over her glasses. It might be impossible, she said. Then, after a pause, but if it works, it will change everything. She offered me access to MIT's top-tier research lab through a partnership program. For the next year, I lived in a blur, cafe shifts in the morning, consulting gigs in the afternoon, lab work until the early hours of the morning. One freezing winter night, at 4:03 a.m., I received the results from our latest prototype, 98.7% efficiency. Dr. Bell confirmed it herself. Charles, this isn't just a breakthrough, this is a revolution. Edward arranged investor meetings. The first 2 walked away without a second thought. The third, Douglas from Vert, ex-Frontier Ventures, leaned back in his chair and asked, why should we trust a 25-year-old nobody? I met his gaze without blinking. Because I've already done the impossible once, I said, let me do it again. 2 weeks later, they invested $12 million for a 23% stake in my company, EtherGrid Technologies. With that money, I built a research facility and assembled a small, brilliant engineering team. We weren't just building a product. We were building the future my father said I could never have.
We spent years in the trenches, wrestling with stubborn technical problems, battling delays, and surviving nights when I thought the dream was slipping through my fingers. There were moments when the lab floor felt like a battlefield, half-built prototypes scattered like fallen soldiers, my team and I staring at code and circuits that refused to behave. But we kept going. Every failure taught us something, every delay made the final design sharper. After 3 grueling years, The day came when we rolled our first commercial-scale energy storage system into the testing bay. My team was silent, our breaths held as the system powered up. I watched the monitors as data began streaming in, steady, perfect numbers climbing higher than I dared to hope. When the final calculation came in, 98.9% efficiency, there was a moment of stillness, and then the lab erupted. Shouts, cheers, a few tears. I sank into a chair, feeling the weight of every sleepless night and every cheap meal I'd eaten to survive. The implications hit me almost immediately. At that level of efficiency, renewable energy wasn't just competitive with fossil fuels, it was cheaper, cleaner, and more reliable. The world's energy map had just shifted. Within months, every major energy company wanted our technology. 2 years after Vertex Frontier Ventures took a gamble on me, Ether Grid Technologies went public. On the first day of trading, our stock doubled. By the end of the week, my personal stake was worth over $250 million. For the first time since leaving home, I bought a suit, not one of the stiff, over-tailored ones my father favored, but a sleek, modern design from a boutique that dressed tech leaders. Olivia, now our head of operations, tagged along, grinning as I studied myself in the mirror. Trying to impress someone? She teased. No, I said, straightening my tie, it's time I visit home. I hadn't spoken to my family in 6 years. The Millers still held on to their empire, Miller and Sons, but the cracks were showing. Traditional banking was dying, exactly as I had predicted, and they were now circling the drain. Whispers in the finance world said they were facing a hostile takeover from a firm called Digital Horizon Capital. What they didn't know was that Digital Horizon was one of mine. The decision wasn't about revenge alone, it was about closure. I had left with nothing but $99 in my wallet, and now I had the chance to buy the very empire that had dismissed me as worthless. Before leaving for the airport, I stood in my office holding an old family photograph, my father, my mother, and a younger me standing stiffly in front of the mansion. Olivia noticed. Are you sure about this? She asked softly. I slid the photo into my pocket. They taught me that money is the only measure of worth. Time to show them mine. The Miller and Sons building hadn't changed, still grand, with towering columns and gold-plated door handles, but walking through those doors this time, I wasn't the unwanted son dragging a suitcase. I was the CEO of a corporation that could swallow theirs whole. Mr. Carter, here to see the board, I told the receptionist, using the name I had taken when I left home. She didn't recognize me, just smiled politely and sent me upstairs. The boardroom was exactly as I remembered, dark mahogany walls, an oversized table, oil paintings of grim-faced ancestors staring down. As a boy, I had hidden under that very table while my father closed deals, my small hands tracing the carved patterns in the wood. Now, I sat at the head of it. One by one, the board members entered, murmuring greetings. Then my father walked in. He had aged sharply, his once commanding posture slightly bent, his hair more gray than black. He didn't recognize me at all. I'm here on behalf of Digital Horizon Capital, I began evenly, regarding our offer to acquire Miller and Sons. We're not selling to some tech startup, my father said, his voice still sharp but with an undercurrent of unease. It will be gone in 5 years if you don't, I said, then I let my voice shift into a tone he would know anywhere. Isn't that right, father? The air went still, my father's eyes locked on mine, his face drained of color. Charles? Hello, father, miss me? An older board member's mouth fell open. Little Charles Miller? It's Charles Carter now, I said. I'm here as a businessman, not your son. My father's jaw tightened. So you work for Digital Horizon? No, I said calmly, I own it, and it's part of Ether Grid Technologies. Gasps rippled around the table. You left with nothing, my father said. No, I corrected, I left with $99, your definition of my worth. Want to know what it bought? I slid folders across the table. Ether Grid is valued at $8 billion. Over the past year, we've quietly acquired 47% of Miller and Sons shares and most of your outstanding debt. Here's the offer. Miller and Sons will be absorbed into Digital Horizon. The family name will be retired, and you will step down immediately. You can't do this, my father said, voice cracking. I already have. The only question is whether we transition smoothly, or whether I call in the loans and have this company dissolved by Friday. You'd destroy your own family's company? No, I said, standing, You destroyed it when you refused to change. I'm just making sure the pieces end up somewhere useful. I walked to the door, then paused and looked back at him. Remember that $99 you threw at me? By your standards, what's my worth now?